Greetings and welcome to I Care Leadership Live. This is the podcast for I Care leaders who want to level up their leadership, create better cultures, and improve the financial results of their clinics. Now, let's join the show. Welcome, Matt, to the show.
Mike, thanks for having me. This is very exciting. I've never done a live one like this before. It's a fun format. I like that. It gives you a chance for people to jibber jab if they want.
Exactly. And for anyone out there that is listening live, please gibber or jabber at us by commenting on LinkedIn. Just on that LinkedIn screen, you can just write a question or a comment for Matt. He loves giving legal advice directly off the hip. No pressure there, Matt.
I like it. No, I'm in-house counsel. I'm used to people coming in with random questions for about anything at all. So no, I love it.
Okay, cool. Well, awesome. Well, yeah. Would love to get a question or a comment. If you know Matt, say hi. If you know me, and you want to say hi, would love to hear from you. But yeah, Matt Stevens, welcome to the show. Matt's an attorney. He's got his own practice called Provider Legal, where he helps healthcare providers. So yeah, Matt, I guess maybe just as a start, tell us about your business and what do you guys do?
Yeah. Thank you for that. And thank you for having us on. I really appreciate it. These are always fun to do. And I hope it's of value to the people that are listening and hopefully we get to do some more of these down the road. I picked who I like to service my client base and I like doctors. I like doctors. I like dentists. I like licensed healthcare professionals. And so in general, that's who we serve. That's who we care about. I think they are smart. They are caring and are interested in helping people out. And it as an attorney, like you're in fights a lot. And it's nice to be like, hey, at least my guy, no matter what happened or whatever it is that we're fighting about, somebody came in, had a problem. My guy is trying to fix it. And that's a really nice place to be. That's as a client, it just makes you feel good. And as an attorney, and look, man, we need all the good feelings we can get in the legal field. It's rough out here.
I love that. You know what? As an HR practitioner, I feel exactly the same way. I want to work for people that I like, and that's a big deal. You're representing them legally, and if they're a shyster or an a-hole or whatever, that's not a good feeling, right?
No, especially those that are like unnecessarily aggressive. I'm like, everyone calm down. Like, we're gonna get a deal done by the end of the day.
Yeah.
Like we're gonna get through this, whatever it is, we're gonna figure it out. And what, are you going to stop practicing medicine or whatever your specialty is because you had a problem? No, you're going to have to figure it out. So let's just figure it out. As far as like the services that we provide, we do really two things. We do outside general counsel work. And I really like that part. I like that part because it gives a lot of variety of issues. Ends up being employment, regulatory work, contracts, and then just weird questions, just, hey, I was thinking about this and I got stressed and what do I do with this? And I'm like, great, love it. Would love to talk with you about it. And then the other half of our business is we do a lot of transactions. So all on the provider side, we don't really mess with facilities except for community health clinics, FQHCs. Those are more outpatient than facility. And so that's where we focus our practice on.
Okay, awesome. Well, we were talking about some of the issues that are hot in the clinical healthcare world. And one of those topics has to do with billing. And, I guess you could tell me, but there are some disputes from a legal standpoint that can arise when it comes to billing. So can you kind of elaborate on that and where you might step in to help a practice with that?
Yeah. And with billing, you first got to define like where it is that we're talking. When you're talking about cash basis, and how does that work versus insurance reimbursement? Let's just focus on the insurance reimbursement because that's where 80-90% of us are always going to end up living. The tricky part with insurance reimbursement is one, like imagine a business model where you essentially just get to take a bunch of money in and your profit margin is directly related to just not paying money out. Like it doesn't take like a Harvard Business School graduate to tell you like, just don't pay any money out, obviously. And then you can set your profit in advance. It's the easiest business on earth. And then the natural response is, well, they can't do that because ethically and they get regulated. And I'm like, okay, great. So then the next part is they make a bunch of games that make it difficult to get paid out that that makes them pay out just enough that they don't get thrown in jail. And everything up until that line is fair game. And so that's the tricky, that as an attorney, that's how I view insurance companies. That's how I view payers. And my experience hasn't shown me any different. I am 100% spot on. And so the tricky part that I find, or how I like to describe it, it's kind of like a hydra, you know, that Greek mythical thing where it can hit you with a bunch of different, and you slice one off and you have another two. So it's one of those things where you first have to say from philosophically, like, hey, this is always going to be a pain. This is always going to be difficult. I'm going to have to dedicate some part of my business to just handling this stuff because it's going to happen. That is the cost of being in healthcare and accepting reimbursement. And that's going to be the case no matter what. So in terms of like major issues, it's like, oh man, I could name like half a dozen. It can range from, let's say a special investigations unit comes in and says, oh, we don't like the way you're billing. We're like, okay, so we're billing correctly. We're fulfilling, you know, and then it's just, we're fulfilling your requirements. There's nothing wrong with what we're doing. And you're not asking for money. And then it's like, well, what do you do with that? In that situation, I still like to reply, even if, especially if it comes from SIU. So it depends on like where you get the request from. If it's from special investigations, that means that something has happened. Somebody has said you have an issue, the algorithm has tricked it off. They are doing an internal focus on your practice area for whatever reason. They have an internal focus to that algorithm. Maybe you're a high biller. Something's happening that they said, oh, we're going to take a look at this. And for those, I like responding, even if there's not a practical, they're not asking for money, because it's like, no. I want it to be 100% clear that we were billing correctly the entire time. You just didn't like the documentation in this field and needed to go in that field. But there was nothing fraudulent. There was nothing wrong with it. So that's sort of at one end, right? It's like getting a traffic ticket where you just got to spend some time, but you're not really paying that much money in that time. And then you have all the way over to, let's just keep it in private payer land, a recruitment request where you say, hey, we're not paying you because you owe us $250,000. And that can range from like, oh, okay, so let's find out why that is. What data are you using to support that? What claims specifically are you withholding and why? And there could be like half a dozen issues that comes up. It could be like, hey, did they properly notify you according to their provider contract? Did they follow their own rules with how they're supposed to notify you as to the recruitment? Did they follow your state guidelines as to whether or not they did that correctly or not? And then that's before you even get into like, hey, what are the actual claims? Like, what are you saying that we're missing or haven't done? And for those, it is wild. Meaning that like I had a recruitment once for $1.6 million. I wrote one letter. I looked at it and it was so like disorganized. And once you actually like went through the spreadsheet on a per claim, per topic basis, it was almost just like, how are you in this business? How is this? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it was just almost negligent in the way that I wrote one letter, heard nothing for 3 months, and then they settled for $40,000. And so like, and that's not because I'm good or bad as an attorney. It's just like, oh, that's how disorganized these can be. So I would probably say like the first step is around billing. If you're getting one of these requests, is that like, hey, let's not jump to being scared just yet. It's going to take a little bit to figure out what the heck this is, because it could be, or, you know, on the other end, you're completely right. And man, you have been billing wrong for a long time. And we have got to have some very serious discussions about what the next 4 months of your life are going to look like.
And are these and so as special investigation unit is a term that's unfamiliar to me. Maybe it's more familiar to practice administrators out there. So is that a federal regulatory business unit basically?
Yeah. No. We're still in private payer land. We haven't gotten.
We're still in private payer. Okay.
Just with, you know what? And I forget what people don't know. I assume everyone knows everything.
That's okay. So if these requests are coming in from private payers, what are, and I think I would be very nervous. I appreciate your first tip here, which just sounds like stay calm, because we don't know, they could be shooting from left field over here. What is it that typically, like if a practice maybe did something that brought this on, it's not just a random thing. What are some of the things that maybe they did that might have, tipped off these private payers that, hey, maybe we need to look into this a little bit?
It's one of three things. One is that there's probably a specific issue. Like, for instance, if you're doing like incident to billing, for instance, incident to billing is required by Medicare, so plans have to do it, but they have their own procedure for how you can do incident to billing. And for context, Mike, incident to billing is when you say, hey, I've got a mid-level who's performing the medical services, but I'm billing as the MD or DO that's actually as the one who's provided the services. So a lot of times they'll have rules in the provider manual that say, look, the doctor, the MDDO, they've got to do the initial visit and they've got to check in every 6 months. But apart from that, yep, you can have the mid-level do this according to the plan of care, and Bob's your uncle, you're done. Or something like that. They might be more specific or less specific depending on the particular plan. And so they'll say, well, hey, your notes don't include any doctor review that meet our requirements for incident 2. So you can't bill under the doctor rates. You got to go at 80%. Which is a big haircut. That's a big haircut to take because you didn't follow these compliance rules or whatever it happens to be. So that's it. So I would say it's some issue like that. It's very specific. Number 2 is you're just a high billing provider or there's something weird about your practice. I talked with a guy who had so you have like 99214s, 334s, 5s, and for complexity of cases, honest to goodness, Lord is my witness, all 5s. Like 95% of his practice. And I was like, look, there's just, buddy, what's going on? This is weird. This is weird. And then I talked to him. He's like, oh yeah, I'm the central repository for everybody's cases that nobody knows what to do with. All of my cases actually are like this. I went to his documentation and yeah, he was right. It was verified. It was weird, very weird, but he was in a small state and he'd been doing it for 40 years. And just everybody knew that like, hey, if you can't solve a problem, and he was right. And so that one wasn't hard to do. The third reason you tend to get them, no one knows. It's just something you didn't scratch behind your left ear like you were supposed to. You did not throw salt over your shoulder. And that's just the randomness that's just sort of unfair about what's so hard about these provider relations.
Gotcha. What is, I'm curious, we're talking about payers coming after clinics to say, hey, we overpaid you basically. Is there ever a time when you get involved? Because I keep hearing more of providers who feel like they can't get paid. Like, hey, we're trying to get paid and we're doing work we did work that was justified. Does it ever come to where you get involved with a payer to say, hey, why aren't you paying us under contract terms?
Yeah. And normally, so here's why the phenomenon like that exists. And I want to talk a little bit about SAU so we get to some background on it, but imagine an octopus with 8 arms, but no central nervous system. The parts that collect the money, those parts of the insurance company, beautiful. They work incredibly well. I imagine every one of them has a marble desk. And the ones that pay out money, they're in downtown, God knows where, in some unconditioned warehouse.
Sweaty. Yeah.
And so my point in saying that is that they don't talk to each other. And that's what makes it difficult. And so the short answer is a lot of times when you aren't getting paid, it's usually because they're just so administratively unorganized and they have no incentive to fix it, that it usually just means that you have to get up enough the chain to actually get a response from somebody. And so, yeah, we have helped them. And we specifically, I'm trying to avoid litigation because litigation usually isn't worth it. So there's a few strategies that you can use. Just having an attorney raises the temperature because all of a sudden it gets kicked to their counsel's office and something that's not even technically a legal issue. Now they've got to deal with. And I'm like, well, I'm going to keep harassing you until something happens. In extreme cases, I've emailed just everyone I can get a hold of. So sometimes I've actually emailed the entire board of an insurance company and it worked. It worked. And so a lot of times it's not even about the litigation. It's about raising the temperature for them so that they have to respond. And that's usually how we handle those issues. And yes, we do get into that a fair bit.
This show is sponsored by Seasoned Advice HR Services, where I help eye care businesses to make more money and save more money by hiring better, retaining better, and reducing your HR risk. If you would like an HR assessment or ongoing HR support, please reach out to me at seasoned-advice.com. I understand that maybe there are times when someone within the practice says, going back to more like the payer, and maybe this is more on the regulatory side, on the federal, someone says, hey, I don't think that their billing is happening correctly here, kind of a thing. Is that a common situation? And I don't know, how do you navigate that?
I wouldn't say common, but it's one that needs to be handled. That is a much bigger issue than people tend to think. Mm-hmm. It's huge. And here's the reason why. It's because, first off, whoever says this compliant concern, it's never your star employee. It's never somebody, and crazily enough, it's always somebody from billing. It's like, well, I hired you to fix it. So, tell me what to do and we'll fix it. And if I don't believe your advice, show me and verify.
Yeah.
But the real risk that you run up with is that if those issues are not addressed and not handled, the temptation for that employee is then to file a qui tam case, which allows the employee to stand in the shoes of the U.S. government, enforce a law with an attorney that does it, and then they get to collect somewhere between, I think it's 10 to 18% of the total amount recovered. And the attorneys that tend to take these cases, unfortunately, are not morons. They're usually pretty sharp, and they know this area well. This is all they tend to do. So if they attract the attention of one of these attorneys and one of these employees talks to them, because what happens, the qui tam is just the civil stuff. The government then has this period of time that says whether or not they're going to intervene, and then all of a sudden you have just gotten the attention of the Department of Justice, which are not exactly slouches either. Like, they unfortunately are quite good at their job. Real pain, but they are. They're smart attorneys. They know what they're doing. And even if they decline the case, now it's public knowledge that you have this problem, or you at least are alleged to have this problem. And then what happens next is what? Every state has their own Medicare, Medicaid fraud enforcement unit that you might attract attention to. Or if you can get somebody who's like an attorney general, and the attorney general gets really dangerous because they have no idea what they're doing a lot of times. Like the DOJ and at the state, they work in healthcare. They know healthcare. They get reimbursement. They know it. They got all the issues. The attorney general, maybe it's someone who's excellent, or it could be somebody from the murder unit that was just prosecuting gangbangers. And while they are an excellent attorney, this is a very different area of law. So I've seen people get prosecuted for stuff that are not nothing, but they are administrative errors. And they're treated like they're murderers or like real criminals. I'm like, nope, they're 23 years old and this is their second adult job. That's all that's happening. They just filled out the paperwork wrong, or joyfully will pay you back. And that's the part that's real scary. And so when an employee has compliance concerns, it's one of those things where it's like, hey, if it's around billing, man, you gotta talk with them and make sure you're seeing eye to eye with them, because that, when it goes bad, that's your whole life. That's the next 5 years of your life. That's what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot imagine getting contacted by the attorney general for any reason at all. Not interested.
No, it's not a fun. No one's marriage has gotten better with the DOJ investigation hanging over there. No one's skin looks younger and firmer and better with that kind of stress hanging over your life.
Okay, with that, so let's say that I'm a conservative-minded physician, meaning I want to do everything by the book. I want to stay out of the crosshairs of the the politically minded attorney general, ex-murder prosecutor who wants out to get me. Like, what are things that I should be doing to, just do things correctly?
There's two things I would say. First is when you get the investigation, talk to a lawyer super, super early, even before the other side has an attorney, because most of the investigation is decided as far as the severity and the scope of it is the investigator, not the attorney, the investigator that's assigned to it. Because remember, that investigator and that attorney have to work together like a lot. So if you get something from the government that's like, hey, you know what, just spend the $500, talk to whoever you got to talk to figure out what this issue is. So that would be sort of point one. Point two is you're supposed to have some kind of a compliance plan. It is allowed. The more sophisticated an organization, the more robust it has to be. But at a minimum, let's check our billing to make sure that we are documenting correctly and aren't doing anything funky. And I like, ever so often, if you can afford it, I like having a third party review billing just to see. I don't mind in-house billing. I get why people do it. It's nice to control costs. The problem I have with in-house billing, or the concern I have rather with in-house billing, is that they only know how to do it for that organization. And so when someone says like, oh, I have 10 years experience, I'm like, well, how many organizations have you worked at? How many different types of billing have you done? They say, well, this one, since I was 25 and now I'm 35, I have 10 years of experience. I'm like, well, I think it's more accurate to say that you have 1 year of experience repeated 10 times. And the nice part about having a third party that you like a lot, and that is fairly strict, even if they're a little like too strict or too compliant, they see a lot of problems. They see a lot of stuff. And they have a variety of billing, and they can tell you like, well, this is what I've seen with this payer. This is what this payer is enforcing on. So like it or not, those are the rules we're messing with.
That's that's a really fascinating takeaway there, because that's a key decision for a clinic is, should I have in-house billing or should I, outsource that? And it sounds like there's a real value, and I'd never thought about that. There's a real value to the expertise of a external billing company, even if you maybe are just using them for auditing or review, but maybe even that day to day, because they really know, hey man, United Healthcare, you got to hold your earlobe and scratch your head when you submit the claim or whatever,
Yeah. And it feels like that. And like the downside of outside billing is like, well, will they chase after the money with the same passion that I will? Because it's my dollars and I can directly control the employee. And fair comment. And I hear that. But like, there is something to be said for having that third party experience.
Okay, sure. Okay. And I could see that offsetting, right? Like maybe a little bit more cost, but that more expertise comes in and it kind of balances out. One topic that I hear a lot in the ophthalmology community has to do with MIPS. Is you ever get issues with MIPS or MIP audits or that kind of thing? Because apparently, I'm a green person in this area. This is a significant issue for clinics. Is doing the MIPS right?
It's the same rules as anything else, where it's like you have to figure out what the heck it is. We got to figure out what it is. Why is the issue coming up? What is it about our activity that has caused this issue, if anything, or is it on them? So it doesn't, from a reimbursement perspective, it doesn't get handled there's not any new technique. It just requires attention as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. Well, another area I know that you deal with in your practice has to do with the employment side of things. And that's one area where I know a little bit more, in my comfort zone. But what are some of the things that you help your clients out with, and maybe some of the issues that come up repetitively where maybe they make boo-boos that you have to clean up, or the areas where you wish they would utilize your services more?
Well, I think so we do in-house counsel, right? So we're going to do everything essentially short of litigation around an employment issue. So the stuff we typically get asked for is to really standardize their documents, which I like doing. It makes it really clear. It allows me to update the whole organization all at once. We'll do some handbook reviews with it, though frankly, I think that's probably better in the hands of HR professionals, because there are some cultural questions that you need to answer. And that's not my purview. And that's the thing where I think lawyers kind of need to stay in their lane, where it's just like, hey, my job is to realize that like HR folks and attorneys have two different jobs. Like yours is a lot of things. What's the culture of the org? How are we doing? We have recruitment. How do I build the organization? The only thing that my one guiding principle for employment matters is how do I get out for the least amount of money? And that's the only thing. And it's not my concern, or it's less of a concern unless the client tells me what the issue is. So the stuff we'll do is we'll do a lot of standardization of documents. Then we'll do a lot of tricky terminations. It's, hey, I want to fire this person. tell me how much risk am I for doing that sort of thing. And it's a little bit like predicting when it's going to rain. It's like, I don't know. I can give you some sort of idea, but what I can do a lot of is help get you an umbrella. So let's get our documentation together, and let me be incredibly responsive to that attorney, because the reason, and the reason where we get responsive to attorneys is because of two things. One is the faster you respond to that attorney request, the less money that firm has invested in the case, because all these guys are taking it on contingency. So if the faster you respond and the faster you get down to brass tacks of what the issue is, the less amount of money they've put in, which means the less settlement you're going to end up paying. Because you're not necessarily negotiating with the plaintiff at that point, you're negotiating with the attorney, and the attorney always has their cut in mind for what they're doing. The second reason that you want to respond and have attorney look at it is because you'll know what kind of firm it is. Like, plaintiff employment attorneys can range from like extraordinarily disorganized to where like they lose clients, just their contact information, the ability to reach their client, like, that level of disorganization, all the way to some pretty sharp attorneys that only take cases that they know they've got you dead to rights, and this is their model and they've got it figured out. So knowing like what kind of a firm you're messing with and you're interacting with will really delineate the strategy, or really drive a lot of what that strategy is going to end up being.
Are you seeing, do you tend to see more disputes related to physician employment or staff employment, or is it kind of both?
I see more definitely on staff.
Okay.
Physicians don't make a big thing of it unless because they're too high of an income earner.
Okay.
So it's really decided by who's the high income earner versus not. The higher the income earner, the more serious the issue tends to be, and they're only going to sue if it's like really sort of matters. You're not, and you also, because they're salaried, you don't deal with a lot of wage and hour claims and a lot of like technical rules that you can violate and create a lot of penalties real fast. And on the lower end of the spectrum, there are whole law firms. Their model is just, hey man, we just do wage and hour technical violations. We settle between $5,000 and $8,000 per case. We take home $2,500, and I just do $1 million of them. That's the model. And so you see more technical issues. Okay. Plus, like, as the economy not necessarily weakens or gets worse, or I don't know where the economy, but whenever there are trouble signs for the economy, you get those types of cases a lot more, because those individuals are getting squeezed. If prices are rising for them and their wages are not, and they're about to lose their job, they don't know when they're going to get another one. And so, yeah, that's what motivates them. That's what drives these cases. Very little of what you actually do as the employer.
Yeah, I've seen the same thing, right? So you see more disputes, you see more complaints about pay rates or complaints about discrimination or unfair treatment when the economy gets tighter.
Yeah.
And so that's interesting. I guess I was thinking the reason for asking, do you see more on the physician side versus the employee side, is because my initial thought was, more money, contract disputes and stuff. But actually what you said makes a lot of sense. I mean, if I'm a provider, I've got a contract in place, everything's kind of spelled out. Whereas if I'm an employee, I might have a crappy handbook in place and a lot more emotion and obviously a lot more staff, right? You probably have, 5 to 10 staff for every doctor, right? So just a numbers game. You're probably going to see more of those claims come through than for physicians. So with that being said, you kind of invoked wage and hour there, just on that particular topic. What are some issues where you think clinics sometimes miss the boat on wage and hour, where they get it wrong and they have to settle?
Timekeeping. And it's just, are they taking the lunch when they're supposed to? If your state has something for paid breaks, do you have something that signifies that they've done it? What kind of records do you have? Do you have the ability to pull the records when you're asked? It's that sort of thing that you've got. My most well-organized clients will have, I had somebody who had a wage and hour claim and a wrongful termination suit, and they had a camera, which was among my more organized clients, and it was great. I literally had a camera on his computer screen. I was like, there he is. He's working on his t-shirt business, man. Like, I don't know what to tell you. This is as good an evidence as I could possibly get. That is clearly not the practice software. And so people who have the ability and take the interest in putting in systems to just recognize and put all of that in, they are saving themselves. They're making clear relationships with the employees, but also they're saving themselves a headache, depending on the size of practice. Let's say you're 5 to 15 employees, you're going to get one of these every year. You're just plan on it. But if you can avoid, and if you can not have one for 2 to 4 years at a stretch, you're in great shape and doing really, really well. You must have good relationships with your employees, good systems in place, and the relationship helps. It makes a huge difference, but it doesn't make up for systems, because at some point, someone's going to get upset because humans are unpredictable.
Okay, well, sounds like a strong endorsement for having robust time tracking and payroll. Because nothing makes people more upset than feeling like they're not getting paid for their time.
Of course, yeah, of course, of course. Like you can have the nicest place to work on earth, someone can't make their rent, or like they know. For someone for an employee who's not very good at their job, let's say they're terrible at their job, they know exactly how much they're getting paid. They know that part of their life really well. Yeah. They've got that down to the millisecond.
Yeah. Any examples of a I don't know, an employment dispute that stand out in your mind from recent memory that could be illustrative?
Oh, you know what it is? The wage and hour stuff gets so common. Yeah, I'll tell you one. The craziest thing about it is that sometimes even when you do everything right, you can still get a claim. Mm-hmm. And those ones drive me crazy, because you've done the timekeeping systems and yet somebody was mad and then they still came in and did it. So my point in bringing that out as an illustrative example isn't to say that it's useless or hopeless. It does reduce it, but it's not going to eliminate this human factor that you're going to have. And that's the thing that people, I think, look for from attorneys and look for in businesses and consultants. It's like, how can I have no problems? I'm like, if you find that out, you tell me, because you're about to be a trillionaire, an actual trillionaire. You can't do it. But what you can do is you can reduce the number and you can reduce the severity of it. And an honest to goodness, like in that example where I had a client who set up everything correct, and somebody had a PAGA claim that they wanted to put. We got on with the attorney and we're like, first off, we've got you dead to rights on the evidence. And look, this is a tiny little case. This isn't worth your time and money. And they're like, yeah, you're right. This isn't really worth our time and money, because they were a pretty sharp law firm. They knew what they were doing, and they knew where to spend their money and where not to. Mm. And also their claims were ridiculous a little bit. So I think it's to accept that things are going to happen. And if we can just reduce it a little bit, and if we can make it a little less costly, that's the goal. We're never going to get to nothing. We're going to get to smoother and better, so you can focus your time on engineering, treating patients, and getting your business running.
Well, Matt, I think we lived up to our billing here in terms of talking about boring but potentially expensive problems here. Yeah. So I appreciate you being on the show. What are, just in wrapping up here, what are some of the other issues that you deal with at Provider Legal? And, why would someone want to reach out to you to work with you?
We know healthcare is the only thing we know anything about. We specialize in healthcare. We specialize on the provider side. We know if you're somewhere between 1 to 1.5 and $50 million in the healthcare space, chances are we've got a client who's really, really similar to you. We have a pretty deep bench in terms of the ability or the experience that we've got to handle that particular issue. So whether it's an employment issue, a contract dispute, or just contract review, or if you just want to talk about your business, like, we are thrilled. I love having those conversations. They're really fun. We get to say, well, look, I don't know how to run your business, but this is what other clients have done. That's really, really a fun place for us to act. And in some sense, it's like, hey, come ask us. Chances are either we know it, or look, we can at least point you in the right direction.
Cool. Well, yeah, Matt, I've known you for a while. You're a super easy guy to chat with, and I think anyone would enjoy a conversation with you, as I've enjoyed this conversation here today. So if someone does want to chat you up, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Shoot us a call, 714-280-7097. Our website's providerlegal.com. You can set up a consult. The first consult's always free. just get a hold of us on the phone or shoot us an email, mstevens@providerlegal, and we're happy to help you out.
Okay, awesome. Well, Matt, thanks so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me, Mike. I really appreciate it.
Well, that brings this episode of iCare Leadership Live to a conclusion. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show on your podcast app and share it with someone who would value the content. I promise to bring you more guests and content to help make you a better iCare clinical leader. I also invite you to subscribe to my HR newsletter for iCare leaders. You can find information about that at seasoned-advice.com. Now go out there and lead with confidence.